Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. My name is Tim Davis. I'm a certified financial planner and executive managing director at Davis Executive Wealth at Stewart Partners here in Boston. I'm joined today by Gregg and Kevin Flynn of Lincoln. And today we're going to be discussing Social Security and all of the fun facts of Social Security. We went over some of the topics in the invitation. We're going to try to keep things high level from a presentation standpoint. And as specific questions roll in, please use the Q&A function on Zoom to address questions as they come to mind. And the topics we're going to cover today are obviously some of the common challenges that retirees face on when and how to take Social Security. We will touch on the status of Social Security, which is always a hot topic amongst a lot of folks. When to file is probably the most important thing you're ever going to face when making a decision on Social Security, what the benefit amounts are, what the rules are for those who continue to work, what are the spousal benefits. Specifically, I think one of the most overlooked things when it comes to Social Security is survivor benefits. And survivor benefits are affected by when you start collecting Social Security. And finally, most importantly, how does Social Security fit into your overall retirement plan? I think a lot of people would probably be surprised to hear that, with all of the clients that we work with across multiple, asset ranges, Social Security is a very important component of retirement planning. If you take the average Social Security benefit, just using kind of back of the cocktail napkin math, the average Social Security benefit is more or less a replacement of about $1.5 million worth of assets. So, it's not an insignificant sum, especially when you are fully retired, and income is the name of the game. To keep with the format of our past webinars, I did want to give a brief market update, introduction, kind of state of the world, until about 10 after the hour. And then I plan on handing the mic over to Kevin and Gregg until about the bottom of the hour. And then we try to save the last 15 to 30 minutes, depending on how much engagement there is, for Q&A. And again, I can't encourage you enough to ask us anything that comes to mind. There's not any question that's too simple or that might seem insignificant, because this is a very, very important topic to cover, and probably the most important topic you want to talk about or think about before you retire, and certainly when you retire, depending on what age you currently are and whether or not you're currently collecting. So without further ado, I do want to kind of bring everybody up to speed on where we are with the markets, the economy, geopolitics, and all that good stuff. I think that one of the things that's top of mind in real time, obviously, is the ongoing conflict in the Middle East and the Iranian attack on Israel yesterday. Thank God it seemed that a lot of these missiles either didn't hit their intended targets, were shot down, or fell out of the sky. And a lot of people do worry about what would geopolitics have, what would a war have on an impact on my portfolio. And the only thing we can do is look at what are some of the past experiences. And 5 of the 7 past invasions on a global scale that got everybody's attention, 5 of those 7 times stocks were higher. And in 6 of those prior times, they were much higher. So let's look back at those various times. Vietnam, if you bought the so-called invasion in 1964, stocks were higher at just about every other time for the next 12 months. The Gulf War in 1991 was a great example of not letting that conflict detract from your investment strategy. Stocks were higher. The Afghanistan war, I think that had a lot more to do with timing, because that was in October of 2001. We were already on the edge of a recession. And obviously, the recession followed in 2002. Stocks were lower. The Iraq war in 2003, stocks were higher. Crimean crisis, stocks were higher. The Russian invasion of Ukraine, they did dip, but ended up going higher. And then, of course, this most recent conflict with Israel and Hamas in October of 2023, just about a year ago. Stocks are much higher over the past year. So we do warn people to not let the the emotional connection and the human connection of what goes on in a global conflict affect your long-term investment strategies. Obviously, in the short term here, I think that this again is a little bit of a timing thing where the market has had a good run, especially off the lows of early August. So we were kind of due for a pullback. And when you're in a position where the market is due for a pullback, it kind of looks for any excuse to give you that pullback, and that's what we might be experiencing here. But the good news is, from a technical perspective, is when we look at the mechanics of the market, the percentage of U.S. stocks within 20% of their 12-month high remain quite healthy, and Treasury yields have not budged too much. So that is a good sign that we look for. We believe that the three main headwinds that we're going to have to probably deal with, especially now between now and the election, is the East Coast and Gulf Coast strikes by the longshoremen. I did put a brief snippet out on social media yesterday. I didn't want to push out an email, so I didn't want to inundate everybody's inboxes, but we do have somewhat of a prior example of how such a huge strike affects the economy. Back in 2012 and 13, there was a similar strike on the West Coast. And that strike, I believe, lasted 7 months and did not have a short or intermediate or long-term effect on the markets. So the longshoremen strike, while it might create some scary headlines, at this point, we don't believe that it's going to be something that's going to affect the markets of the economy in any major way. Obviously, the second thing we need to look at is the Iranian missile strike against Israel and what that is going to mean for a retaliatory strike. Obviously, none of us know that. But as we saw the last time around, it did not have an impact, and there's a lot to lose on both sides, and when both sides have a lot to lose, there's a lot of reasons to not escalate things. And then finally, October is October. October is the scary season for the market. This is typically when markets make their lows, seasonally, and the best time to be invested is typically beginning sometime in October through the spring. So we are on the cusp of having the seasonal tailwinds at our backs from an equity and fixed income perspective. As I've stated many times in the past, we are very constructive on small and mid-cap stocks in the United States. This is an asset class that has been in the absolute doldrums for the past 3 years. Small and mid-cap, as well as international emerging markets for that matter, have a very high correlation to fixed income, have a high correlation to bonds. When yields go up, those are tough sectors to own. When yields go down, the wind is at your back, and they tend to do very well and actually outperform. So we are very constructive on fixed income. We are very constructive on U.S. small and mid cap, and we might even become constructive on emerging markets, which is a place that we haven't had a lot of it or any exposure to in the past couple of years. We're keeping a close eye on oil. There's a glut of supply. So that comes down to obviously a supply and demand equation. oil prices will be affected by what happens in the Middle East in the short term, but we expect that to remain in the short term. So we are not too worried about that, because it seems that everybody is pumping as much oil as they can possibly get out of the ground, and the economy is not so strong that there's an appetite for all of the supply. So there is supply and supply issue in terms of there's too much supply and not enough demand. Excuse me. And then finally, China announced a pretty big stimulus last week. At the margin, it doesn't seem to be that big yet, but it is positive and constructive for international and emerging markets. So we are keeping an eye on that. So that gives you hopefully a good update as to what's going on in the markets. And I'm almost on time to hand it right over to Kevin and kick off our discussion on Social Security.
Love it, Tim. Can you hear me okay?
I can, thank you.
Phenomenal, and hopefully I'm starting to share my screen as well too. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I'm grateful to be on this webinar with you all. And I guess I'd say, Tim, thank you for that update. I guess maybe I have, in the context of everything, probably have the easy part of going through Social Security when I consider all the things and nuances as it relates to investment management that you're doing for your clients on a consistent day-to-day basis. When I think about Social Security, ladies and gentlemen, this is something that causes a little stress and anxiety. Healthcare is one as well too. But oftentimes I find Social Security, it's very situational in nature, right? Everybody's got a story. It's not coffee, it's my coffee, so to speak, right? It's very personal in nature. And whether you've joined this webinar today already having a preconceived notion with respect to your decision to file at 62, 66, 70, what have you, I'm okay with that, okay? I at least want you to be cognizant of what you might be possibly leaving on the table, not necessarily just for yourself, but for a spouse who can claim a benefit off of you, or even a widow benefit as well too. So we're going to kind of go through some of this rather quickly, some of it a little slower, just to hit on the high points of the agenda here. Hopefully I can advance this. Give me just a second. All right, so Tim had done a great job of kind of talking about the agenda, the common challenges, what's the current status, some filing ages, benefit amounts, but really what I want to try and get to the crux of and deepen with your questions with respect to the benefits and rules for spousal, divorced, and survivor benefits. And I think I'm going to turn it over to Greg at the end to talk about how Social Security can tie into your overall retirement income plan. So when I think about the top retirement concerns, obviously Tim just talked about a lot of them with respect to changes happening within our economy, inflation, unexpected health issues, unforeseen expenses with respect to healthcare, running out of money, life expectancy, et cetera. Those are top concerns on out there. But when I think about Social Security, there's so much more than just a monthly paycheck. Okay, you have predetermined lifetime income payments, and we'll talk about that formula very, very quickly. You also have a COLA, or a cost of living adjustment. Historically, that's been around 1.5%, 2%. Every single year it oscillates. Last couple of years, probably the highest COLA that we have seen, understandably, with inflation. But again, you have survivor benefits, and I could not agree with Tim more, where the biggest hidden gem within Social Security is the survivor benefit that is available later on down the line. And we'll talk about a couple examples and how that can be impacted and affected. But with respect to the status of Social Security, probably no surprise to a lot of people on this webinar, demographics certainly threaten the long-term future viability of Social Security. I believe that 2024 is what we're calling peak 65, where this is the year where we have the most amount of baby boomers turning 65 within that demographic. So when you're taking a look at, how many workers are paying into the system to benefit retirees, it becomes cumbersome. And we have already started to dip into the Social Security Trust Fund reserves. It is expected, based on the latest Congressional Budget Office report, that by 2035, we will have depleted those Social Security Trust Fund reserves, and beneficiaries on Social Security will be receiving roughly 80% of their benefits. Now, as you're seeing in the middle here, there are a number of different reforms and proposals that are under consideration. with respect to raising the Social Security wage base. Some of you might be familiar that we cap out from a FICA taxes perspective in 2024 anyway, at around $169,000. So the thought is if we were to increase that or eliminate it altogether, there'll be more FICA taxes paying into the system, therefore prolonging Social Security, obviously increasing the full retirement age or increasing the early retirement age. A lot of things are on the table. Nothing has been yet set in stone, but I passionately believe something will be done. We just don't know when and with what velocity, but I don't believe that it will significantly impact the beneficiaries on Social Security. I think it will probably impact my generation, my children, et cetera, et cetera. Some quick vocabulary, obviously early retirement age, that's the earliest age that you can file, as I'm sure many of you know, it's 62. Your FRA, or your full retirement age, is depending upon the age in which you were born. Most people on this webinar, I would presume it's between 66 and 67. And then we have a delayed retirement age where you are actually paid by Social Security to wait. We've already talked about the COLA, and then your PIA. By definition, your primary insurance amount is a monthly benefit that you're expected to receive at full retirement age. So when you think about that retirement continuum, right, let's just say for the sake of the argument, my full retirement age is age 67, and it's at $2,000 a month, just putting some numbers to this for context. If I file at age 62, which I can certainly do, I'm permanently reducing my benefit from $2,000 down to $1,500 per month, okay? But conversely, if I was to delay taking my Social Security and boost that out to age 70, Social Security will pay me 8% per year. So that $2,000 benefit, if you will, would be just south of $2,500. So that is a wide realm of possibilities and everywhere in between. Again, that's why I mentioned that it's very situational in nature. Everybody's got a story. We have $1,500 at 62, $2,000 at age 67, and $2,480 at age 70. And again, everywhere in between. And interestingly enough, what we find is individuals don't consult with Tim and Ed. They go direct to Social Security at age 62 and file at a reduced benefit. Right, 2/3 of individuals don't make it to full retirement age. If we could at least get you to do that and maximize the benefit with which you're entitled to receive, in my mind, that's a win. But oftentimes I find, though, with respect to your decision on when you file, revolves around a number of different factors. In my humble opinion, in my experience, it's been around the top two, right? Are you healthy? Can you continue working? And what's your life expectancy? Right? If everyone in your family before you had, passed away in their 60s, 70s, what have you, then I'd say file at 62 all day long and twice on Sunday without hesitation. But when I think about our access to care, being here in the Northeast, I would just encourage you and caution you to perhaps plan for a little bit longer than you might normally realize. And Tim and Ed are the experts in that regard. All right, so knowing your benefits, obviously you can log on to ssa.gov. Your statement is going to be mailed to you every 5 years if you're under age 60. If you're over age 60, you'll start to receive it every year around your birthday, or obviously call Social Security to receive a statement. This is what one looks like. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. With respect to how your benefits are determined, oftentimes people feel as though it was their last 3 or their best 5, what have you. Trust me when I tell you, I can go deeper if you want to in Q&A, but this is a significantly more comprehensive formula where Social Security looks at your highest 35 years of earnings between the ages of 22 and 62. All those numbers are added together, indexed for inflation, and then you're essentially getting to your primary insurance amount. You can absolutely continue to work after age 62. It can only it cannot hurt your benefit. Essentially, if you continue working beyond age 62, if you contain some poor earnings years or some zeros in there, perhaps a stay-at-home mom or dad, what have you, that will all be recalculated, factored into your equation with respect to your primary insurance amount. Oftentimes, I get asked the question, can I work and collect at the exact same time? The answer is absolutely yes, with an asterisk, okay? It depends upon when you have filed for your Social Security benefits. So try and break this down for you. So let's just say, for the sake of the argument, my monthly benefit excuse me, my full retirement age, forgive me, my full retirement age is age 67, okay? So let's just say I want to go part-time at the age of 64, right? Just throwing that on out there arbitrarily. So I have not yet attained the year that I become full retirement age, okay? You're seeing here, it depends upon how much earnings I am making that year. I am capped out at $22,320 in 2024. So if I go over $22,320, I'll have $1 withheld in my benefits for every $2 above that limit, okay? That is prior to my attainment of full retirement age, or the year that I turned full retirement age. The year I turned full retirement age. So I'll disclose to you all, I was born on Halloween. I have no idea if I was a trick or a treat. You got to ask my mom. But from January to September, it doesn't include the month that I turned FRA at age 67. That's when I can make $59,520. It goes up the year that you are turning full retirement age. If I go over $59,520, I'll have $1 withheld for every $3 above that limit, okay? But upon my attainment of full retirement age, I can work and collect benefits without impacting my Social Security benefit whatsoever. So at the end of the day, yes, you can work and collect at the exact same time, but it depends on how much earnings you're making and where exactly you are at along your retirement timeline. And planning questions, probably pretty simply working this with Tim and Ed. You know, are you working in a job that you enjoy and you want to continue? If you're both, you know, working and married, do you want to retire at the same time? Certainly things to ponder along those lines, especially when you factor in the healthcare conversation as well too. Okay, so going deeper here with respect to spousal benefits. So let's just back up to the example I mentioned a few slides ago, where let's just say, for the sake of the argument, my monthly benefit at full retirement age, keep the math very, very simple, is $2,000, okay? I'll introduce you to my spouse, Kristen, who's here virtually. Just kidding, of course. So Kristen is not able to take a spousal benefit off of my record, okay, until I have at least opened up my file, I've started collecting my $2,000, and we have been married for at least 1 year. If that is the case, then Kristen is entitled to receive 50% of my benefit, okay? So let's just throw a number out there just for a situation here. Let's just say Kristen's monthly benefit is $750 a month, okay? So Kristen's entitled to receive $1,000, right? 50% of my benefit. Question I get often asked is, can Kristen collect her $1,000 spousal benefit in addition to her $750 retirement benefit, right? And the answer, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, is no. What will happen is that Social Security will pay Kristen on her $750 first, and then kick on the additional $250 to bring her up to the $1,000 spousal benefit that she's entitled to receive. So essentially, she gets the greater of the two, not both. If Kristen's monthly benefit was $1,500 in that example, then there's no spousal benefit, if you will, that is paid to her, because her own retirement benefit is greater than what she'd be entitled to receive as a spousal benefit. So again, get the greater of the two, not both. So here's a pictorial example with Sue and Sam. Very simply, Sam's monthly benefit is $2,100, Sue's $900. They're both at FRA. So long as Sam opens up his file, Sue's entitled to receive half, or $1,050. Once again, Social Security will pay Sue on her $900 first, and then kick in the additional $150 to bring her up to that $1,050 benefit. Okay, moving along to divorced spousal benefits. This operates very, very similarly to that of a spousal benefit, okay, in terms of, you know, you maximize the 50% at full retirement age. If you claim a spousal benefit early, then there is a reduction along those lines. However, Social Security makes you earn this one, ladies and gentlemen, where the marriage must have lasted for 10 years or longer for an ex-spouse to be entitled to receive a benefit off of their divorced, the divorced individual along those lines. So a couple anecdotal stories here I joke about whenever I do webinars. is you take a look at Johnny Carson. He had 3 ex-spouses. I want to say 2 of the 3 ex-spouses' marriages lasted for 10 years. So each one of those ex-spouses would be entitled to receive a spousal benefit off of his record without impacting him, by the way, whatsoever. So a little anecdotal story for you. I joke with Larry King, the late Larry King. I want to say he had 7 ex-wives, and I want to say only 2 or 3 were actually entitled to receive a benefit off of his record, but maybe that's why we're going bankrupt. Who knows? Okay, now survivor benefits. I mentioned before, and Tim even highlighted this as well too, this is one of the biggest hidden gems within Social Security, and Social Security allows the widow to essentially make the decision of what will provide them more monthly income. So what could happen here, you could have someone that passed away early, okay? And what is not listed on this slide is that widow benefits can be taken as early as age 60, by the way. But an individual, a widow, can receive a widow benefit at age 60 while allowing their own benefit to grow, and then they can switch on over to their own retirement benefit. So you can essentially do the math to see, would a widow benefit or my own retirement benefit growing yield me more monthly income? So going back to Kevin and Kristen, in our example, and just, again, let's just say my monthly benefit's $2,000, Kristen is $750. But if I allow my benefit to grow up to age 70, and now I'm collecting just south of $2,500, I collect $2,500, Kristen's receiving the $1,000. But if I was to pass away, if something happens to me, Kristen essentially surrenders her $1,000 spousal benefit, and Kristen can step up to my primary insurance amount, including those delayed retirement credits earned. And that could be very, very meaningful from a planning perspective along those lines, because what I also speak very passionately about is healthcare costs, right? So where would healthcare costs be later on down the line when I pass away? That additional boost in income, again, could be meaningful along those lines. So with proper planning, utilizing the software that Tim and Ed have and their expertise to try and foster a delayed retirement credit strategy for the higher wage earner, whether it's Kevin or Kristen, to allow that step up to take place later on down the line. Just very, very quickly, I'll tell you a story about a seminar I did a couple Thursdays ago in Quincy. This woman came up. She, after attending the seminar, what have you, she was collecting a $1,700 just her own retirement benefit. She went back into Social Security after learning of her ability to step up to a higher widow benefit because her late husband had not yet been in Social Security. He passed away early, but he had done really, really well. Long story short, ladies and gentlemen, this individual went from a $1,700 retirement benefit up to a $3,300 widow benefit, and she had no idea that she was entitled to do so. So just be cognizant of that with respect to a widow benefit. So here we show a pictorial example going back to Sue and Sam. Again, collectively on the left-hand side, Sam was collecting $2,100, Sue was collecting the $1,050. Someone passes away, we surrender the lower benefit, we just continue to receive that survivor benefit. So the question I oftentimes ask, in these type of scenarios and webinars, et cetera, is how would retirement be different for you if you only have one Social Security check, right? What does that impact look like? What is that plan? How can we help you, go deeper along those lines, developing, creating, and implementing that strategy? So just very, very quickly, I'm not an accountant. Just be cognizant of the fact with respect to taxation, it is possible for a portion of your Social Security benefits to be taxed. They look at what's called your combined income. In the asterisk, your combined income is your modified adjusted gross income plus half of your Social Security benefit, plus any non-taxable interest from municipal securities, et cetera, et cetera. Again, I've been doing this seminar for probably 15 years plus, and everything I've seen so far has had some indexing to it, some inflation, but what's been mind-boggling to me is that these brackets have not changed. And I think that they certainly should. I'm sure you would agree as well too, where it's possible. These are low brackets, in my humble opinion, where you could possibly have up to 85% of your benefits be taxable along those lines. So at this red hot moment, I'm grateful for the time and the opportunity. Hopefully that was a pretty solid overview. I'm going to turn it on over to my partner, Gregg, who's going to talk about, kind of the role of Social Security as we view it within your overall retirement income plan. So Gregg, take it away.
Hey, thank you, Kevin. Can you hear me right now?
Yes.
We got you, bud.
All right, great. So thank you all, Tim. Thank you for having us. And really what we're going to talk about is the role of Social Security and financial plan. When we look at how our grandparents or maybe great-grandparents retired, a lot of it was with a pension plan. We're now all given the ability to grow our own assets and retire with lump sums of money, but we have to figure how to pay ourselves forever. For a lot of the folks on the call, and maybe not everybody, the only guaranteed portion of their retirement income is Social Security. So what we do, working with Tim and his team at Davis Wealth Management, is blend together different insurance products, generally annuities, that are able to take your Social Security, marry it up with a guaranteed product for income, increase what you have, almost pensionizing, right? More assets that you're able to guarantee are going to come to you no matter what markets do, no matter what happens, like Tim, whatever. So way to really marry up every and get a better kind of secure source of guaranteed income to at least meet your required the required payments that you have every month. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Tim. I'm going to thank Kevin for his time, but we're here for questions and answers, and I'm going to kick it back over to Tim.
Thanks, Gregg. So a couple of points I wanted to touch upon, and we did have one question come in that was in real time, and I didn't check the question as the presentation was given, so I apologize. But somebody had asked, does this apply if you wait until delayed retirement age? And I wasn't sure exactly what specific thing during the presentation you were referring to. So if you want to get back into the Q&A function and ask that question again and be more specific to what it was for, I can Kevin, myself, or Gregg can do our best to answer that. But the most common concern that we hear from clients is benefit cuts. As you pointed out at the beginning, Kevin, this 2032, 3, 4 period is a concern on multiple levels, not just Social Security. It's like everything goes off at once. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, just the budget becomes overwhelmed. And certainly they're going to have some substantial structural reforms, but it is worth noting that even if nothing is done, it's not like you're not going to get paid. You're still going to get benefits. There'll just be a benefit cut of, say, 10% or 20% or 30% or whatever it might be. And politicians being politicians, especially an elderly voting bloc by that period where the baby boomers are all going to be in their late 60s, 70s, and 80s. I don't see them just leaving that population out to dry. But to the point that Kevin was making, it's going to most likely impact the younger generation. And quite frankly, the easiest way, it might not be the most politically astute way, but the easiest way to do it would just be to kick the retirement age out, because Social Security has never been adjusted for life expectancy. And in fact, when the first recipient received Social Security, I believe that they lived 1 year. So I don't think anybody envisioned when this program began that some people, and a lot of people, especially this day and age, are going to collect for longer than they worked. And certainly that doesn't work. So, I think you're probably going to see you're going to have to see the one side that just wants to raise taxes and keep benefits the way they are. That won't work. You're going to have to kick the can down the road in terms of extending life expectancy. And I think that's going to be a combination of that and then just raising taxes marginally at some level. The question did come in: how do survival benefits work if I'm not collecting Social Security yet and I'm currently 68 years old. Kevin, you want to take that one?
Yeah, 100%. So I'm going to go back to the slide where Social Security, again, will allow you to make the decision of what will provide you more meaningful income. So if you wanted to possibly take a widow benefit right now, which you're entitled to do, and I'm just going to say, let's just say that widow benefit is, say, $3,000, right? Just throwing a number on out there.
No, this wouldn't be a widow.
This
isn't a widow benefit. This would be for somebody who's currently, married couple. I'm sorry. It is.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So let's just say that the widow benefit's $3,000 that you could take right now. But if your benefit continuing to grow, you're currently 68 years old. So if you were able to maximize your delayed retirement credit for another 2 years up to age 70, and let's just say that benefit would yield you more than a $3,000 widow benefit, why not take the $3,000 widow benefit now and allow you to do that? You can switch it on over and provide the most meaningful income for you. If your own income is not going to be that much, then just go ahead and take the $3,000 widow benefit and call it a day, and you can continue to work as well too. So it really allows you the best of both worlds. We'd have to do the math in terms of what is your widow benefit entitlement relative to your current retirement benefit, your own primary insurance amount, and we can make the math, make the decision for you along those lines. So hopefully that helps. You can get the greater of the two, depending on what makes more sense.
Thank you, Kevin. Next question. If we take benefits at 62, at what survivor age does that become a bad decision?
Yeah, so, and you even mentioned this as well too, right, Tim? So once you take your benefit at age 62, once reduced, it's permanently reduced along those lines. So when you have to make the decision, or not the decision, but look at the dollar amount that you're entitled to receive as a widow benefit relative to the spousal benefit that you took along those lines. So if you take benefits at age 62, what survivor age does it become a bad decision? So the individual just steps up to whatever that primary insurance amount was. So if your monthly benefit is $2,000, you file at 62 at $1,500 in my example that I said, then your survivor benefit is only going to be able to get the $1,500 if that was more than what the survivor benefit would be able to receive on their own accord, on their own account. So once reduced, it's a permanent reduction along those lines.
Which is why that can be a dangerous decision. One of the things I wanted to show, and I'm going to share my screen here. This is a sample financial plan that we have on our website. Davis.stewardpartners.com is our website. And on there is a sample financial plan. And we go through this analysis with every client of ours. So the clients that are on the call, they've probably seen this before. And this is our Social Security analysis worksheet. And this shows John and Jane and what the various Social Security collection options are, and how collecting at different ages affects the probability of success of retirement, and also gives you the total lifetime income benefit. So you can see that, depending on how long you live, obviously, if you collect Social Security as soon as you possibly can, both at 62, which is a great dovetail off this question, you get a total lifetime benefit of $1.3 million. And if John were to wait until 70, the total lifetime benefit is $1.609 million, for a delta of almost $300,000. But look at the income here. At $28,000 is full retirement, at 62, full retirement age is $40,000, and waiting until 70 is $50,000. So it's almost double at 62 versus 70. And that is locked in for your spouse. And it also is a higher number for the inflation adjustment. And just imagine, the individuals that were, around 70, say in 2017, 18, or 19, and then all of a sudden you have this explosion of inflation, which is going to permanently inflate your benefit, and you get that benefit of that bigger number. And we also do have break-even points that we calculate for our clients as well, that'll show you in the example that the individual just asked. For John and Jane, it's 80, 81. You gotta live to 80 or 81 to make 70 worth it. So you are, somewhat making a gamble here, excuse me. If you have longevity in your family, if you think you're going to live a long, fruitful life, then obviously waiting is the better thing to do. And it also depends on your personal financial situation in terms of, do you have the assets that are going to be offset? And to Gregg's point, very often with clients, the obvious answer to how am I going to drive income from my assets is dividends and interest is traditionally what we all think of in retirement. That was our parents' generation. AT&T stock is something that I think every grandparent in the world had, and always had a great dividend. You always heard your grandfather talk about dividends. And in this day and age, up until recently, it was almost impossible to do because interest rates were practically at zero for 10 or 15 years. Now that rates have come back up, we have a pretty unique window. And I spoke about this at the beginning of the call. In terms of, this is why I think there's a very good opportunity in fixed income, where bond yields are the highest they've been, in the past almost 20 years. I think it was 2006 was the last time they were around this level. And our ability to lock in those yields is great for retirees, either buying bonds directly or even bond funds. But what's often ignored is an annuity option that allows you to lock in a lifetime income benefit with an insurance company, where the risk of you getting that money is it's transferred to the insurance company, where depending on how you structure the contract that you purchase, it can continue to pay you even if it quote unquote runs out of money. Because there are immediate annuities where you give a lump sum and you get a lifetime income benefit in return. And there are also variable annuities that give you an income benefit, but allow you the best of both worlds. They allow you to still keep your money in the market. And a lot of the contracts today are not, what we all are used to, say 10, 20, 30 years ago, where annuities are insurance contracts, and the first thing that comes to mind is they're ungodly expensive. The fees have come substantially down. And there are actually contracts now that no longer lock you in. So you have essentially a quote unquote no load annuity, where there's no cost to get in and there's no cost to get out. Because traditionally, when you bought an annuity, there was a 7 or 10 year deferred sales charge, and the internal expenses could be north of 3%. And therefore, everybody was scared to death of ever getting near anything like that because of the cost. Well, those costs are substantially less because the market has become A, much more transparent, and B, much more competitive. So it's not as scary of a word as it once was. Next question. Do Social Security benefits go to children upon death of the parents? Good question. Kevin, you want to take that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's two things that are in there. Number one is there's a Social Security death benefit. I want to say it's $250, $300. It's not meaningful, but as a survivor benefit, they are entitled to get 75% of their parents, of the deceased parents' benefits, so long as they are under age 18. If they're over age 18, then they would not be entitled to receive any benefits. So there are some benefits and eligibility along those lines, but yes, it is possible for there to be a survivor benefit as well as a death benefit that could go to the child.
Thank you. Another thing that I had written down that I wanted to mention was deferring past full retirement age and that 8% benefit. the way that
Yeah.
I look at that is, that's a benefit that's a government guaranteed benefit. So it's analogous to like an 8% treasury bond. It is not an 8% treasury bond. Don't get me wrong, but the 8%, I am not, nobody can promise you an 8% return on anything. And the word guarantee is not allowed in our business. However, an 8% income benefit, which simple math is 24% over 3 years, that's locked in for life, that's inflation adjusted, and also locked in for your spouse. That's a very tough thing to turn down. And the most common thing that we run into is, well, I need the income now or I'm not going to make it. Now that's a different story. If you're on the cusp and you need that to live, that's different. But if there is any way that you can budget your way to 70, besides extenuating circumstances, at the margin, we try to encourage as many folks as possible to wait to that 70 number, because of the multiple fringe benefits that you get as a result of locking in the highest possible income number. And inflation obviously is the big one. And if just ask anybody who's been on Social Security the last 3 years, it's been the best 3 years from an income standpoint than in a long time. Unfortunately, everything else goes up with it, and in a lot of cases more than what the benefit is. But if we can get inflation back down, which it's now trending back towards 2%, you still have that locked in higher number. So hopefully that will work out in retirees' favor going forward.
Could not agree with you more.
We don't have any other questions. I'll kind of lob this out one more time. If anybody else has any final questions, speak now or forever hold your peace, at least for the purposes of this webinar. If you do have any questions that we have not addressed, that you didn't want to ask, or you forget to ask 5 minutes after we get off, you remember the question, please email me or any member of my team, myself and Michael Lynn, who digs very deep into the Social Security analysis, knows it inside and out, as well as Ed and Mike. We'd be happy to address the question. And if we can't answer it, we'll find somebody that can. But if we are finished with Q&A, Gregg and Kevin, I'm going to let you out of school early. It is 12
Thank you,
of the
Tim.
hour, so take advantage of it. It's a happy hump day. And thanks very much, gentlemen, for your time. This was a great hour to spend and talk about one of the most ignored part of retirement planning that we've found that should be the most important piece. And we appreciate your time and everything you put into it.